Welcome to another edition of Language of the Gods, where we discuss issues and topics relating to metaphysics, astrology, and astrotheology. Here we delve into the dark recesses of hidden knowledge in an attempt to draw out the truth which has been suppressed and distorted by a sinister hidden hand over centuries of control and manipulation, as they work together towards their ultimate objective of global governance under an all-encompassing technological control grid.
Globalisation comes with both positive and negative aspects. It is the inevitable next step in the evolution of human social development, the progression from villages to towns and towns to cities. We are now witnessing the nation-states merge with their neighbours to create continental unions, which will eventually lead to the one all-encompassing globalized system. The process of unification has not been easy. It has been slowly creeping up on us for centuries. The vast majority of people do not like change, which is understandable if that change leads them into unknown waters, and given the choice, they will resist. There are too many people, all with different opinions. If the globalization project takes on board all these views, modifying its strategies to accommodate, it would take too long and never see the completion of its ultimate aim. It is therefore necessary to boldly force through its agenda, whatever the consequence and collateral damage. At present, they appear to have a window of opportunity, which they are aggressively utilizing. All systems are go for the final sprint to the finishing line. The amount of crockery smashed along the way seems unimportant to them now. And once they get to the finishing line, they will rebuild and recalibrate society to fit in with the new system they wish to implement. It is easier to build a new system if the old one is out of the way first. A controlled demolition of the old world may be necessary. Once the Marxist socialists of the East merge with the Fabians of the West, we will essentially be in a global socialist system. Ironic when you consider that National Socialism was the big bad wolf of the 20th century, and global socialism is the next step up from that. I suspect this form of governance would give people choices in all the areas which don't threaten the continuity of power, which they will be permitted to serve, providing they are of use and behave in line with the required political correctness. The advantages of globalization. Countries can specialize in those areas which they are naturally good at. Larger markets are created. More competition with cheaper prices. More choice of goods from all over the world. Removal of borders and less regulation on movement. Standardization of units, measures and procedures. Reduced costs to military and border defense, reduced overall cost to bureaucracy, promotes peace between nations, relieve poverty and redistribute wealth. The advantages of globalization, once in place and running efficiently, can outweigh the pain and sacrifice humanity has to go through to get there. It is a great opportunity to reset society, casting off redundant traditions to create a brave new world. In the right hands and under wise management, Globalization offers immense benefits for the future of humanity. An optimistic view of globalization. Globalization can be portrayed as a positive achievement, an optimistic vision for the future, a world with a civilized, borderless community, freedom for all to enjoy and prosper. Globalization has made life easier in some ways and can continue to do so. Technology allows individuals to work almost anywhere in the world, coordinating their affairs from portable handheld devices. With borders relaxed, free movement allows us to enjoy the world like never before. We can mix with people from all cultures, in all walks of life. It has opened up markets to poor communities, enabling them to improve their basic standards, helping them interact with more people, removing feelings of isolation. English, the global language, now allows people to understand one another, reducing tension and misunderstanding. There is no need to be frightened of other countries, cultures, or their people. We are all part of the human race, wanting to live in peace and harmony, to pull together in a shared common cause under a common system for the greater good of all and future generations. Together we can help transform the global economy into a global community. Robert Silverstein. We must ensure that the global market is embedded in broadly shared values and practices that reflect global social needs, and that all the world's people share the benefits of globalization. Kofi Annan. We are committed with our lives to build a different model, a different future for humanity, the earth and other species. We have envisaged a moral alternative to economic globalization, and we will not rest until we see it realized. Maud Barlow. Changing the structure and rules of the global economy will require a mass movement based on messages of compassion, justice and equality, as well as collaborative and democratic processes. If we stay positive, inclusive and democratic, we have a truly historic opportunity to build a global movement for social justice. Medea Benjamin. The disadvantages of globalization. The loss of sovereignty and independence. The slow erosion of unique cultural ways of living. Interdependency. If you don't like the system you live under, you have no alternative. A single system, if corrupted, will be very difficult to pull back. It can easily become totalitarian. Alternative forms of living, the pursuit of your individual version of happiness, may be restricted. A monoculture will eventually evolve from years of globalization. Disease spreads more easily. Multinational corporations have the potential to make every city the same. The main disadvantage with the globalization project, which will eventually be controlled by one global government, is the possibility of that government being compromised by corrupt interests. No matter how good the measures are to prevent this, history shows us it will eventually be compromised. The other major objection is that a single system will not be suitable for everyone, in which case they are stuck with no alternative to escape to. The control of humanity has always been the big issue. The ones holding the batons of power are not going to suddenly relinquish their position. If they did, anarchy would ensue, leading to absolute chaos, out of which would come instability and gang mentality. Somebody has to be in control, so why not them? We cannot all be captains of the ship or as rich as they are. It is just a cruel fact of life. Every generation has had its masters and its servants. It is up to the majority who are servants to rein in the exploitative powers of their masters, so don't be frightened to say no once in a while. I would define globalization as the freedom for my group of companies to invest where it wants, when it wants, to produce what it wants, to buy and sell where it wants, and support the fewest restrictions possible coming from labour laws and social conventions. Percy Barnevik, President of the ABB Industrial Group. Globalization, as defined by rich people like us, is a very nice thing. You are talking about the internet. You are talking about cell phones. You are talking about computers. This doesn't affect 2/3 of the people of the world. Jimmy Carter. There's two globalizations. There's the globalization of the elites, of the corporations, represented by the World Bank, the IMF, the World Trade Organization. That's the global state. It's a secret global government information. There's another globalization. That's grassroots globalization. The fair trade networks, the sister cities, sister schools, citizen diplomacy, the work we do at Global Exchange, linking people up at the grassroots. That represents majority forces. The elite globalization represents minority forces. The elite globalization is about making money. It's money values. The people's globalization, the democratic mass globalization, is about life values. So you got two paradigms, the money cycle and the life cycle, and they are in contestation. Kevin Danaher. Recognizing that the current form of globalization is nothing more than a generalized downward leveling in which global corporations are extracting more and more of the wealth, power, and productive energies from communities and the environment in the right approach, and knowing that in every specific battle what we are fighting for is merely the substitution of the human agenda for the corporate agenda is what can guide and sustain us. Robin Harnell. A pessimistic view of the future under globalization. The new globalization project is a modern-day extension of the old colonial power system, with the same players and their descendants in control. They are using the multinational corporations as a substitute for military conquest and dictatorial rule. After the Second World War, the IMF and World Bank were set up to help facilitate the reconstruction of European economies. Many underdeveloped countries, which had been exploited for centuries by the old colonial system, were encouraged to borrow huge sums, opening up their borders to free trade, persuading them to participate in the international economic community. Conditions were placed on these loans, allowing a steady infestation of multinationals and global financiers, together with common purpose policies. New factories and sweatshops were built to produce cheap goods for Western markets, creating economic labour camps and human resource processing zones. These underdeveloped countries were encouraged away from self-sufficiency and independence. Pressure would be applied using trade agreements, debt and sanctions to any government veering off international policies. Occasionally, if they failed to fall in line, regime change would be sanctioned. The future of everyday life under globalization, once it reaches its completion phase, will be an extension of the same progressive policies of power consolidation which we have witnessed throughout the centuries. The controllers of these globalist institutions will hold all the cards. They will use humanity as a commodity for their own private use. People will be allowed to exist, to serve these institutions. Any form of criticism or dissent will not be tolerated. At present, the vast majority of people show no interest in political matters. Preoccupied with fashion and consumerist tat, they leave that job to their compromised representatives, who get fat and rich legislating freedoms away. Previous generations were unable to prevent the erosion of their national sovereignty, setting a precedent of apathy which will open us up for the final totalitarian takeover. The controllers have never been interested in individual welfare, seen as a tool, as foot soldiers to be used to facilitate the expansion of their power. Once they have total control throughout the world, under a system all-encompassing, they can set about remoulding global society in their image. Reduce the population of the earth to what they consider as sustainable. People will have no rights, just privileges, granted to them by the system for service to that system. We are and always have been building our own prison, a Death Star for the Empire and a brave new world. When we look at who the main players are in the push for globalization, a better picture emerges. There is a triad of power behind this venture, the roots of which have been with us for a very long time. The Crown Corporation of London, the Roman Catholic Church at the Vatican, and Rothschild Zionism in Israel. Very little goes on in the world today without some form of interference or control by one or all of these players. The major multinational corporations and Crown Corporation are interdependent and interlinked. Their shareholders and subsidiaries essentially act as a monolithic entity, expanding their markets under the umbrella of globalization. Zionism is at the forefront of the modern monetary system. The world essentially borrows from their banks on interest. The Vatican, still a powerful organization, cooperates with the Crown and World Zionism to push forward its own influence. From the old colonial system came the new commercial colonization. With help from international finance, a new method of control was utilized. After the Second World War, the dream of a new world order under this corporate financial system was becoming a real possibility. All efforts were focused to bring this about. The United States Corporation, a subsidiary of the Crown Corporation, has been used as military muscle for this ambitious project. Countries or rulers opposing free trade globalization for multinational corporations and finance have been targeted, overthrown or overrun. Philippines in 1948, Puerto Rico 1950, Korea 1951, Iran 1953, Guatemala 1954, Egypt 1956, Lebanon 1958, Vietnam 1960, Cuba 1961, Iraq 1963, Indonesia 1965, Chile 1973, Angola 1976, Nicaragua 1981, Grenada 1983, Panama 1989, Iraq 1990 and 2003, Afghanistan 1998, Pakistan 2005, Somalia 2006, Yemen 2009, Libya 2011 and Syria 2011. All these countries have one thing in common: their wish to be independent from the diktats of the international economic community, or globalization in its present state. Their desire to be self-sufficient was not acceptable in the eyes of the globalists, who insisted everyone play their expected part in bringing their ambitions into fruition. Even democratically elected nationalistic governments like Allende in Chile and Sukarno in Indonesia were targeted for military coups and overthrown by Western-backed military generals. After seizing power, they would deregulate and reprivatize the country's infrastructure, opening the doors once again for progressive assimilation towards globalization. This action would also send a clear message to other countries who wanted to go it alone, a shot across the bow, bringing them back on course. Self-sufficient independence is not an option. Vietnam was an interesting case because Ho Chi Minh broke away from mainstream communism, suspecting it had been compromised by international finance and Western interests. His desire to have a truly independent Vietnamese revolution, uniting both North and South under their own system, was frowned upon by the globalists, who saw the spread of independent communism, a version which they had no control over, as a threat to their future plans. While the globalists were constricting choice on an international and national level, they were also targeting humanity on an individual level, while offering more choice to the average citizen in areas which could not undermine the spread of globalization. They restricted choice in anything which did. All mainstream political parties, media and education became pro-globalist in an effort to set a new benchmark for normality. Anyone opposing or exposing its dangers were viewed as extreme, or at least outside the acceptable view of normal consensus. Individual freedoms, which were once proud expressions of common law, have steadily been eroded and constricted by the imposition of more corporate legislation. Freedoms once taken for granted move further into the distance as the buckles of our corporate straitjackets are tightened. Most of the Christian Judaic world has accepted globalization as their natural destiny, oblivious to whose hand is on the tiller. They see it as a progression towards a brighter future. They know the ship left port a long time ago, and most people wish to stay asleep throughout the journey. They only want to be woken up when they get to the destination. It is a Disney ride to some, who are happy to appear neutral while enthusiastically working in the tank factory to pay their mortgage. For many people, they have little interest in outside matters. The whole world can annihilate itself as long as their favourite game show is still aired, together with an ample supply of beef burgers, beers and ball games. The Islamic world in the Middle East has resisted globalization more than any other region on earth. Why is this? Can the answer be found in astrology? If we look at the nature of Venus worship, reflected by the two signs ruled by Venus, Taurus and Libra, I have and I complement. A people who have all they need to live the life they want, which complements the surroundings in which they reside, are not going to want to change. Like the bull of Taurus in his field, he is happy with what he has. He doesn't want McDonald's or Walmart setting up shop in the corner of his plot. He certainly does not need Nike shoes or Adidas sweatshirts to run around looking like a Premier League superstar. The bull is happy to be left alone, which is what any sensible person would do. But oh no, the globalists want to poke and prod the bull, annoy it and make it do things it does not wish to do. This is a problem for the globalists. They need to persuade the Islamic Middle East, the stubborn bull, to play ball, otherwise their plan for global dominance under one system will stall. All the trouble we see unfolding in the Middle East is just that. Multiple plans and players designed to force globalization and the assimilation of the Islamic world with the Christian Judaic world of finance and commerce. Just as the forced integration policies of the 1990s and 2000s, promoting multiculturalism all over Europe and many parts of the world. These wars and disruptions in the Middle East are forcing Muslim refugees onto predominantly Christian countries in an effort to assimilate for globalization. The more all-round chaos they cause, the better it is for the globalists, who will have an easier job implementing their new global system if the old one has been demolished, just like in Libya, Berlin and Syria. The desire to control the world is an old one. Placing humanity under a single ruling system has been on the go for a very long time. The more sophisticated we become, with better communication and technology, the easier it is to control us. Large conflicts, such as World War I and World War II, are not isolated struggles, wars to end wars. They were major eruptions of organized rebellion against the same continuous program. The war for global governance never ended. It just altered its tactics and its targets. Neither is neutrality an option. They will find some way of sucking you in to some form of compromising entanglement. The founding fathers of America were specific about staying neutral. They knew from history how the European political game worked. Thomas Jefferson, in his first inaugural address, spoke about foreign entanglements. Equal and exact justice to all men, of whatever state or persuasion, religious or political, peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none. After World War II, most formidable organized resistance had been smashed. However, small pockets still existed in various places. Intelligence agencies and secret services were called upon to manage these threats. One such operation was called Operation Gladio, a series of covert military assignments conducted by what was known as a stay-behind army. In his book, NATO's Secret Armies, Operation Gladio, and Terrorism in Western Europe, the Swiss historian Daniel Ganser points to the collaboration between the CIA, British Secret Services, and European Secret Services, working together under NATO. After World War II, networks of clandestine armies were set up to undermine the spread of communism. According to Ganser, this secret army linked up with right-wing terrorist groups to undermine, manipulate and harass left-wing political parties. He also claims that over the subsequent decades, Gladio agents were involved in numerous terrorist attacks on their own European citizens. With all this in mind, and the immense control the establishment has over the mainstream media, it is not out of the question for them to stage more fake attacks which they can blame on their latest enemies, justifying new invasions and new legislation, bringing the minds of its citizens on board with their latest plans, who are expected to continue working and paying for it. Many geopolitical commentators have suggested World War III is already underway. Apart from an official declaration, especially when you consider the amount of countries participating in this latest version of political arm twisting, all the dynamite is being laid. When the big event takes place, igniting it, the shock wave will be enough to bring about the changes necessary to advance the whole planet towards totalitarian global governance. The real game is control. You are the enemy, and the political classes are your masters. At this moment, the old American Republic still has cobwebs of resistance in its aging constitution. The Second Amendment is one of them. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. All presidents after 1871 were acting for the interests of the United States Corporation, as opposed to the American Republic. One by one, they have eroded the inalienable rights of the American citizens, shackling them to a mountain of corporate legislation. The right to bear arms was specifically designed to rein in tyrannical governments and foreign takeovers from within, giving the people a final line of defense against the abuse of power. The Constitution limited the power of government, who were there to serve the people, not the other way around. The Globalisation project cannot allow citizens to have firearms. Power of this nature can only be allowed in the hands of the masters and those who have proven themselves loyal. An ongoing attempt has been underway in the United States to reverse the Second Amendment, to take all guns out of circulation. Shootings, especially mass shootings, are used to promote to ban guns. Some mass shootings in recent years have been suspected as being government-sponsored psyops, secret exercises designed to alter public opinion against gun ownership. The end game of globalization may look good for humanity from an optimistic, naive perspective, but one cannot help feeling a little uneasy when much of its expansion is done covertly. The sinister aspect to it all should ring alarm bells. When your government lies to bring about change, you suspect something is wrong. When it kills innocent people as the result of those lies, you know something is wrong. When your government legislates forbidding criticism of their extreme actions, you know something is very wrong, but now you can't do anything about it. And when your government comes for you, it's all over. With Jupiter's optimism and expansive influence slowly moving out of the picture, a new era of Saturnian contraction, along with Uranus's revolutionary rebelliousness, is emerging. Maybe the reason behind the mad rush to bring about globalization is because Jupiter's energy is fading. The window of opportunity will eventually close. Before World War I, you didn't need a passport for international travel. Border restrictions were few. Only after the passing of the British Nationality and Status Aliens Act of 1914 was it required. Before, you could travel almost anywhere you wanted, do business anywhere, and live anywhere. The global currency had already been in place for thousands of years. It was known as gold and silver. To protect yourself, you carried a firearm, and because others were armed, you also had to behave in a manner which was not confrontational, showing respect for other cultures and their people. In essence, the world and freedoms we once had are being exchanged for a new world of globalization, one in which you need permission and valid documents from elitist corporations to do almost anything. You need to use a fiat currency which loses its value with debt attached. You can travel anywhere you wish if you have purchased the right visa from the right corporate authority. You can also do business anywhere you wish as long as you have enough corporate money and the right corporate permits. To protect yourself, you must be completely disarmed, but pay tax in order to supply local government policy enforcement agencies enough money to keep you relatively safe from those who have no corporate currency and can't afford permits which would allow them to do legitimate work. Airport security has recently become an area of aggravation and frustration for many travellers, with new levels of paranoia and compliance. Since the 9/11 attacks and the incident with the underwear bomber, security has taken on a new meaning. Most airports employ private firms to fulfill this role, with Israeli security companies leading the way, some of which were responsible for the airport security during the 9/11 attacks and the underwear bomber. After such major compromises, you would expect a rethink over the running of airport security, unless it was all part of a grand plan. When you consider the forces at play involved in the globalization project, it is no longer a surprise. There is little doubt that the threat from terrorism is real, but to what extent does it truly threaten the lives of most individuals? The whole concept of terrorism can easily be utilized by the global entities for political purposes. The more fear they can generate, the greater their mechanism of persuasion countering that fear, all in the name of keeping us safe from the Islamic bogeyman. In a time of heightened security and purported terrorist threats, one would think the most logical course of action would be for the United States government to encourage all its citizens to arm themselves, protecting their families and communities from the growing threat. But the opposite is the case. The power structure wants to see all its citizens disarmed. This places doubt over the validity of their claims, with suspicion mounting towards other agendas. All this fear, along with new restrictions, is helping to boost corporate sales. Water, once used as an agent to put out fire, is now seen as a substance capable of bringing down an international airline. It is now forbidden to take water past security. Since then, sales of bottled water inside airport terminals at inflated prices has risen. The ban on any liquid greater than 100 millilitres is another money spinner for the corporations and manufacturers, who can now sell tiny amounts of the same product at high prices. Airport security has become big business, with all kinds of scanning machines and devices, all to prevent terrorism and make us feel safe from strangers wearing exploding underpants. More security and screening techniques condition the people into accepting corporate authority, domesticating society into acquiescing as subordinates to their corporate masters. The level of security witnessed today will not reduce. It will only increase to the next level. This type of corporate control is synonymous with Saturnian energy, and it is no surprise to see Zionist Israel leading this field. If we all lived in a town with no crime, we would not need to pay for a police force. We would not need to buy insurance cover or lock anything away. Corporate sales of burglar alarms and security devices would cease. Any corporation in this line of business would do well to sponsor criminal activity, which would stimulate demand, creating massive profits for themselves and their shareholders, expanding their sphere of influence over the community and the legislative process. One has to realize that the powerful industrial groups concerned in the manufacture of arms are doing their best in all countries to prevent the peaceful settlement of international disputes, and that rulers can achieve this great end only if they are sure of the vigorous support of the majority of their people. Albert Einstein. Globalist policies are being implemented all over the world simultaneously. Any participant dragging their feet will have pressure with consequences placed upon them. While the West stagnates, allowing the underdeveloped countries to catch up, the change which some of these countries are going through is huge. A generation brought up with rice fields and wooden carts are now being thrust into the information age, a change some cannot cope with. The pace is fast, accepted as positive progress. It races full steam ahead as more and more nations are brought to heel. The level of security around our leaders increases. I remember as a child, anyone could walk along Downing Street to view number 10. But now the security is more like the estate of a Colombian drug cartel, not an office representing freedom and democracy. The President of the United States drives around in a car which is so heavily reinforced it would be the only thing left in a nuclear exchange. It certainly makes one wonder whether this kind of security is a consequence of their policies. Even Hitler didn't need to drive around in a fortified tank. As the process of globalization unfolds, humanity has a great opportunity to become proactive in its development. If we all sit back and do nothing, the tyrants will continue with more of the same. It is up to all of us to become proactive, physically and emotionally, steering this new age in a direction which will benefit the many as opposed to the few. Throw off the shackles of deceit, the dogma and ideologies which serve the self. Seek the truth and stop supporting false idols with false hope that train you to look outside yourself for the answers. We have the answers. They are simple. They are written in our hearts. Each one of us can make a difference. Be the change you want to see in the world, and make this globalization project fit for your children and their children. As we move through the transition from Pisces into Aquarius, great changes are taking place. It is a natural and inevitable cycle for humanity and the universe. Cosmic frequencies will stimulate our consciousness, perception and reality, moving steadily into a new epoch of knowing. Many people at this moment feel the world around them is changing, but are confused as to what is really behind the changes, frustrated by the systems they have been living under and supporting throughout their lives, systems which are straining under the pressure of deceit and corruption. Humanity is awakening from a naive daze of Piscean belief, which it has been living under for thousands of years. People all over the world are beginning to see things in a different light, undermining what they previously believed to be real. Many have become suspicious of the control system and sense a greater force behind global events and earth changes. They don't know what it is, but they feel it. From 2012 to 2027, there is a tremendous cardinal energy coming from Mars, the planet of proactivity, the ancient god of war. The cardinal start or genesis of this new age, an age where we see Isis being created to foment war and the proactive movement of millions of people. The sequence of universal energy, according to the zodiac, is the true language of the gods. Whether it plays out internally or externally is based on individual perceptions. The fact is that it will play out anywhere from our consciousness to the far corners of the universe. Uranus, the daddy of Saturn, will resonate 1,000 years of unpredictability, revolutions, independence and new technology. We are also coming around to another 84-year revolutionary cycle of Uranus. Mix this together with a Saturnian backdrop. From traditional astrology, we should see restrictions and contractions in many areas inherited from the Jupiterian age, even to the point of global population reduction. Although Mars's energy is strong during this period, it does not mean we are all going to kill each other. We still have willpower and choice. We can choose our battles and our reality by resisting and restraining certain influences. The control system will become more sophisticated with new forms of technology, battling against society seeking independence and freedom. It certainly will not be mundane. The journey for anyone living through this time will be interesting and full of surprises. By the end of the third decade, around 2027, the global situation should settle back down, although it won't cease. It is similar to the beginning of the Piscean age, where the Romans were expanding their influence for the first 180 years. We are in a similar cycle, but this time under the rulership of the unpredictable revolutionary planet of Uranus. Many people are now aware that most traditional government organizations within the fabric of society are mechanisms of control, not for the benefit of individual freedoms, but for the advancement of their globalization project. Having a basic understanding of applied astronomy, astrology, the language of the gods, helps one decipher the forces at work behind our physical reality. It is the difference between knowing the road ahead as opposed to driving on an unfamiliar dirt track in the dark. Any organization or system of control seeking the upper hand will, without doubt, require all the information they can to cover all contingencies. This includes a comprehensive understanding of the language of the gods. The main objective of all governments and systems of control is to keep hold of power. While offering candy with one hand, they quietly disarm you with the other. Without appreciating this, one can become a little confused as to the motives behind these organizations. To understand their modus operandi better, I will refer once more to Michael Ellner's quote. Everything is backwards. Everything is upside down. Doctors destroy health. Lawyers destroy justice. Psychiatrists destroy minds. Scientists destroy truth. Major media destroys information. Religions destroy spirituality. And governments destroy freedom. It is necessary for any system of control to organize its information institutions, not for the benefit of its people, but to continue in its quest for unchallenged dominance. The possibility of non-human influence interfering in our world from top down becomes more credible the further one looks into this subject. Maybe the gods have always been at the helm, with their representatives here on earth. Education within the modern university system is not designed to expand the mind of the individual. Instead of the holistic universal approach to wisdom, they compartmentalize knowledge by limiting the potential of the human mind, offering only one degree of understanding as opposed to 360 degrees found within the holistic zodiacal approach. With his mortarboard and mind squared off, up to his neck in debt, the graduate slots neatly into this brave new society as a fresh, enthusiastic, obedient worker. Science in modern times has also been targeted and politicized. The method of funding is all important. If you want specific results, you just need to fund the team working on one side of the theory, while denying funds to any studies which contradict your required outcome. In a court of law and in a perfect world, both the prosecution and the defense have an equal share of time and funds necessary to uncover the truth. Unfortunately, this does not always apply in modern science. It is all put in place in an effort to distract and disempower the human collective. Those at the top know what our real potential is and the influence, if united, we have over our reality. They keep us busy with day-to-day petty squabbling and fear, worries over terrorism, climate change, economic collapse and disease, while they continue to fashion the world how they like. What they don't want you to know is, you are God. You are the I am that I am. You are consciousness. You are the Creator. This is the great secret known by seers, prophets and mystics throughout the ages. This is the truth that you can never know intellectually. Neville Goddard, The Power of Awareness. With our thoughts we truly do make the world, and as stewards of our focal consciousness, we have a duty to one another and the collective to be selective and to filter what stimulates our five senses and thoughts. We are therefore guardians over the subconscious and our connection to the spirit world. If we only focus on good as a collective, we should only know and experience good. If we focus on death and destruction, we will only know the seeds of hatred which we plant. The control system will intentionally influence our five senses, stimulating our subconscious and our ability to manifest their reality as opposed to our own, giving all our power over to them. Stop listening to them. By observing them, we give them energy, breathing life into their nostrils and their creations. The universe will give us what we need, not necessarily what we think we need or what the control system convinces us to want. Your destiny is the course of least resistance, guided by your higher mind and connection to the Logos. Your true needs and wants will be taken care of. Your I amness, your consciousness, in the way in which you change your world. Whatever you attach to I am, you become. As you affirm with feeling, I am illuminated, inspired, loving, harmonious, peaceful, happy and strong, you will resurrect these qualities that lie dormant within you, and wonders will happen in your life. When men and women help you in the realization of your dreams, they are playing their part and are messengers testifying to your beliefs and convictions. You wrote the play, and other men and women execute the parts, confirming to your concept of yourself. David Allen, The Power of I Am. Knowing one's own unique position within time and space, through the knowledge and understanding of one's own astrological birth chart, is akin to having your own personal biological instruction manual. Without understanding one's own strengths and weaknesses, life can become unnecessarily difficult. Knowing oneself in this way allows us to flow with natural rhythms and universal energetic cycles. When in tune, your life purpose becomes self-evident and the path made easy. Understanding consciousness is the key to expanding it. The modern capitalist world of corporate consumerism requires armies of shallow reactionary automatons surviving to stimulate and service mammon, discouraged from looking deeply into the meaning of life or taking that sophisticated journey towards enlightenment. The same financial oligarch and corporate interests behind the British Empire have not gone away. In this latest form of imperialism, known as globalisation, their secret societies and global organisations still hold the baton of power. One must not confuse the new British Empire with the British people. They too are caught up in its web of deceit and control. Elements within this web have clearly handicapped humanity through various rival monotheistic planet-worshipping cults, enabling the establishment to create divisions in both our physical and spiritual realms. They carefully play one faction off against the other, while steering us all in the direction they require. Unfortunately, the majority of people guard their set of beliefs vigorously, believing that their view of the world is the most accurate. If their belief system is challenged, even with provable facts, many will still stand by their position. There is a parable in the Bible reflecting this. Jesus and Barabbas. The essence of the story suggests, if you offer the crowd the choice between Jesus, the truth and the light, or Barabbas, the deceiving, lying criminal, the crowd will always choose Barabbas. It is harder to convince someone they have been conned than it is to con them initially. We may never know who is really in control, just as the majority of workers within a corporation do not know the shareholders or get to meet the CEO. Most of humanity is not even aware of other realities or dimensions outside the five senses. Sharing our experience with various other interdimensional entities and spirits. Once we surpass our ignorance, we may one day become masters of our own destiny. I suspect wars are not initiated by humans alone, although it may seem so when viewed from our limited perspectives. It could be the result of non-human interference pushing humanity to a point of self-destruction in an attempt to promote new levels of non-human control. Whether humanity will ever unite again in a common cause for life, liberty and happiness is yet to be seen. What can be seen is the fast erosions of our options to unite against globalization and whoever or whatever is in control. This is why any form of independent national unity is seen as a threat to globalization and world stability. Most people live busy lives. This is not always by choice, leaving no time to think clearly about philosophical questions, what is going off around them and the purpose of their short lives. They are preoccupied with non-issues, concerning corporate procedures and commerce, which neutralizes their capacity to tune into natural universal cycles. Modern living appears to be unwisely pulling us further away from cosmic cycles, detaching us from nature's umbilical cord. Although we are changing on a conscious level, it has always been like this. The only constant in the universe is change. It seems to me that the secret of prosperity, happiness and fulfillment in this life is to be at peace and in harmony with the universe and the rhythms and cycles of nature. Go placidly among the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are a vexation to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career. However humble, it is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself, especially do not feign affection, neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortunes, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here, and whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be. And whatever your labours and aspirations, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its shams, drudgery and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy. Desiderata.
Said that you couldn't see it, though you left on your own to find it. That's when the lost became lonely in the freeze. Gets in your head, in your lungs, that you wheeze. That's when you lie, and you lose, and you cry. Hurts, burn, bad in your back, and you steal, and you starve. Food, facts, no more it cuts through the dark in the streets. Black night, it folds up your life through the love that you lost and you want it back. find it, it's nothing new. Look to the east and you'll find it, it's up to you. You won't have to lie.